You've probably heard of Moses before, and for good reason too. He is one of the most important figures in the Bible. His story helps define a few central ideas throughout the entire biblical epic. Particularly, he helps us understand the roles of the prophet, priest, and the king. But in each instance, Moses does not quite live up to the task. So who does? Let's explore. His story begins when a new pharaoh comes to power in Egypt. Pharaoh enslaves the Israelites and makes them live in the oppressive shadow of his domineering thumb. Eventually, in a panic, Pharaoh demands that all the baby Israelite boys be cast into the Nile and drowned. During this time, Moses is born. He's so precious to his mother Jochebed that she hides him for months. But she knows she can't keep him hidden forever because his crying is nearly heard from heaven. She goes down to the Nile knowing what she must do. But instead, she places Moses in a small, safe basket, like a boat amid a flood, and places him in a sea of reeds on the bank of the Nile. Miraculously, as if passing through the waters on dry ground, Moses is saved by none other than Pharaoh's daughter. So Moses grows up, a stranger in the house of the king, Pharaoh. One day, when he sees an Egyptian man hitting another Israelite, he finds he can't contain his anger. In a fit of rage, he kills the Egyptian man and then flees out of fear to the land of Midian, where Moses settles down and marries. One day, tending to his father-in-law Jethro's flock of sheep, a glint catches the corner of his eye that will change the course of human history. Moses turns aside to see what it is. Suddenly, he comes face to face with a miracle. A mountain bush engulfed in flame but not burning. Then, God himself begins to speak with Moses from the bush. He says that Moses will save his people from slavery in Egypt as Moses had been saved from the reedy Nile River. Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel: 'I am has sent me to you.'" Well, though hesitant, Moses eventually agrees. He will speak the words of God to the people of God. So he goes back to Pharaoh and demands the Israelites be let go. But Pharaoh refuses. So begin the 10 plagues that God sends upon Egypt. There are 9 plagues to show God's power, and a 10th to free the people. Each plague reveals how God has power over the land, control over sickness, and sovereignty over Egypt. But the 10th plague is designed to be the worst, for it shows Pharaoh and all of Egypt that God has control over life and death. And one fateful night, God took the life of every firstborn in Egypt who did not trust in him. This is how God leads the people out of Egypt, by a mighty hand, in a pillar of fire. Even some of the Egyptians trust in God that night and go out with them. But God is still not done showing how powerful he truly is. When trapped against the encroaching army of Pharaoh in the vast Red Sea, God commands Moses to lift his staff above the waters. Soon, God drives the wind and the sea stands up like 2 walls on either side. The people of God pass through the Red Sea on dry ground, and God closes the waters back in on themselves, bringing justice to Israel after 400 long years. God leads the people through the wilderness with Moses in charge, forming the people into a new nation. As a new nation, God gives the people a series of moral, civic, and ceremonial laws that orient them toward God. They're supposed to respond to these laws out of thankfulness for their salvation, but quickly, they become mired in hatred and idolatry. Soon, Moses gets sucked into the chaos along with them, and in a fit of anger, Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice. And at the end, Moses cannot enter into the promised land, just like a priest who cannot enter into God's presence with the stain of sin. You see, through Christian history, we turn to Moses in order to understand some key biblical ideas. Moses defines the role of the prophet, someone who speaks God's words to the people of God. The priest, someone who brings the people of God into the presence of God. And the king, someone who leads the people of God. But in each instance, Moses did not quite live up to the task. It turns out that not even the greatest human leader will be safe from the poison of sin. We will need a prophet who can not only speak God's word, but is God's word. We will need a priest who not only has access to God's presence, but is God's presence. We will need a leader who not only shows us the way through the wilderness, but is the way. That is why hope rises in our hearts when Jesus comes on the scene. As the writer of Hebrews says, Jesus has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses, as much more glory as the builder of a house has more honor than the house itself. For every house is built by someone, but the builder of all things is God. Now Moses was faithful in all God's house as a servant, to testify to the things that were to be spoken later. But Christ is faithful over God's house as a son, and we are his house, if indeed we hold fast our confidence and our boasting and our hope. And that is the story of Moses. If you would like to experience the full story of Moses on Bible Unbound, follow the link in the description. But until next time.
Hey, thanks for exploring the Bible with us over here at Bible Unbound. If stories really do affect our actions out into the world, then how we interpret the Bible really matters. And we believe that Christians should be excited to read their Bibles because the gospel is proclaimed throughout it. And so I like to say that we are here to discover the Bible by uncovering the gospel in every biblical story. If that's a mission that you would like to support, then you can do that at patreon.com. Patreon is this place where you get a bunch of people to donate small amounts of money to help fund an organization's mission. And so if you would like to help others discover the Bible by uncovering the gospel in every biblical story, then you should learn more at patreon.com/BibleUnbound today. Again, patreon.com/BibleUnbound. And that way we can all help others discover the Bible by uncovering the gospel. And I'd love to see you there. Until then.